Let's bring in MS Now's Julia Jester and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under the Obama administration, Joel Rubin. He's also the author of the briefing book Substack. Julia, what can you tell us about the state of negotiations and the threats in the region right now?
Well, Anna, I want to read for you the response from the Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi to the comments that we just heard, because I think it pretty much sums up where we are in these negotiations. Responding directly to that interview with Witkoff, Arakchi posted, "Curious to know why we do not capitulate? Because we are Iranian." And that really just does underscore the position that Iran is in with these negotiations. Now, zero enrichment continues to be a red line for the U.S., but it's not just the external pressures Iran is facing. It faces domestic pressures as well. We've seen these protests. And so with that potential limited strike option to bring Iran to the negotiating table you mentioned, it is questionable whether Iran will be able to do that and be able to face its own people. Now, I do want to note some of the tea leaves we're seeing a little bit in the region, that the embassy in Beirut has been evacuated, as you mentioned, and a senior State Department official said in his statement, quote, "We continuously assess the security environment, and based on our latest review, we determined it prudent to reduce our footprint to essential personnel." So that's a sign that they are trying to get Americans out of harm's way in that region. And in addition to that, Secretary Rubio was slated to travel to Israel on Saturday to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu. That has been pushed back. The State Department official said that the trip is still planned, but it is subject to change, and we'll see when exactly that happens. But these negotiations set on Thursday, according to the Omani foreign minister, as of right now, they are to be indirect negotiations. But when announcing these next round of talks, it was, quote, "with a positive push to go the extra mile toward finalizing the deal," according to the Omanis who have been mediating these talks, Anna. So we'll see if there's any progress, but it seems like both sides are digging in their heels, Anna.
And you point to what's happening today, and that is there's, Joel, this now evacuation happening in Beirut from the embassy. The New York Times has this report. The president's been considering a smaller initial strike meant to send a message to pressure Iran in these negotiations with a threat of a larger strike to come. Could that be an effective strategy, do you think, when dealing with Iran?
Well, you know, Anna, right now, what we're dealing with is an uncertainty about what the actual objective is. And to your description about the evacuation of the embassy, that's because there's chatter on the ground right now about potential proxy attacks by terrorist groups. Well, that used to be one of the issues that was up for negotiation. And remember, the president sent out forces to the region in response to the mass murder of Iranian civilians. But now the negotiations are about the nuclear program. And so I fear that we have a lot of confusion about what we're trying to achieve from a policy perspective. And the result is that we have different clocks turning at different times. We have negotiations, maybe a congressional vote in a week or two, military forces in the region. How long can they be there for? And without that clarity, we just don't really know how we're going to measure achievement of a real goal.
Julia, can you remind us what kind of military forces are there in the region right now?
Well, Anna, before the USS Gerald Ford entered the CENTCOM area of responsibility, there are roughly 40,000 American personnel, not including the Ford. The USS Lincoln carrier group has been there, and now, based on open source intelligence, it does appear that the USS Ford has entered the Mediterranean Sea. Now, that is key because it is in the region, but it's really going to have to transit into the Arabian Gulf to really serve its purpose. And why is that? U.S. bases in the region, you look at Qatar, the UAE, they do not have the adequate air defensive systems. But that math changes once you have two carrier groups in those waters, because you look at some of these countries and they have said that they will not authorize their airspace for U.S. action against Iran. But when you have these carrier groups, they can basically deploy so much from those ships. And it's not just the aircraft carriers themselves. It is also a lot of aircraft. We see F-22s, F-35s, E-3s heading into the regions with signals. It's not just fighter aircraft. It's also these intelligence-capable aircraft that shows that the U.S. is ready for a longer-term operation as opposed to just limited strikes, Anna.
And again, at the heart of all this is what to do about the nuclear program, and that's what these negotiations are focused on. The White House and Iran really seem directly at odds when it comes to what they'll accept for Iran's nuclear future. Take a look at what Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had to say just yesterday.
The president he gave Jared and I direction before we went over there. There were red lines, zero enrichment. We have to have the material back. You know, they say that it's all about their civil program, and yet they've been enriching well beyond.
Enrichment is our right. We are a member of NPT, and we have every right to enjoy a peaceful nuclear energy, including enrichment. How we use this right is something, related to us only.
Realistically, Joel, is there a way to move forward and potentially let Iran keep parts of its nuclear program?
Only if President Trump is willing to climb down from something he's made a center of his worldview and criticize President Obama for. If he wants to have an Obama-like deal, it's probably there for the taking. There may be minor enrichment facilities related to medical isotopes that he could live with. But I think that we're in a position now where the lack of confidence is so high that leaving Iran with the ability to enrich is frightening to this administration. And that's why we may very well be on a military path.
Joel Rubin, it's always great to have your analysis. Thank you, Julia
Thanks,
Jester.
Anna.
We appreciate your report.